All right, well, that'll work. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces and names on here, so I don't feel as we need to do such an elaborate introduction. But as you know, I'm Jonathan Bricker, and I'm the chairman of the Arkansas District Export Council. And I appreciate you being here on this fourth out of sixth series. As always, I'm going to start off by thanking the Arkansas Economic Development Commission and Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions for their sponsorships and giving us the ability to host these series. You guys are already familiar of who the deck is and what we do. So, as always, if there are any questions, you have our contact information at the end of each webinar, and you can also reach out to us at exportarkansas.org. And of course, Mr. Rudy Ortiz is with us, and again, he's the chair of the Export Council's Education Committee. He's also an entrepreneur and doing what he does best with the being a business owner of Strategic Business Services LLC. So, Rudy, again, thank you for all that you do for us and for bringing us these informative webinars. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
I appreciate it, Jonathan. Thank you so much for that. So before we get too far along, go ahead, Ms. Heidi, go ahead and go to the next one, if you please would. Yeah. So I want to make sure that everyone was aware that the National Association of District Export Councils, of which the Arkansas District Export Council is one of the 60 under the NADEC, they're going to be having, the national organization is going to be having a class on right after this one, or very soon after this one. Basically, it's 4 o'clock Eastern. So if you're in Central Time, it's 3 o'clock. So it'll be right after this one. And how to navigate the 3 major stumbling blocks in exporting to the EU. You may or may not be aware that a lot of the regulations that the EU has have been enhanced, and so it really kind of complicates things. And so this webinar is going to be a really good read on some of these changes that have occurred to make sure that you don't wind up doing something that's going to cause you problems. So I do suggest that if you have an opportunity to attend this webinar, that would be great. And Ms. Heidi, I suspect that they're going to record this webinar, but I think you have to be registered in order to receive it. But if for whatever reason you're not able to do that, go ahead.
It'll be on their YouTube channel.
Great.
So if you miss it, then you can always access it later.
Perfect. Thank you, Heidi, for that. Go ahead and go to the next one, if you please would. So as I think most of you know, this is part of a 6-part series of class, Grow Your Exports. And as it turns out, we've had the 3 that you see there. And today we're focusing on logistics, which of course is something that everyone has to contend with and has to get right. Otherwise, some really significant problems can crop up. And then after this class, the next 2 weeks, we'll be having trade regulations and legal issues because a lot of times you have to have a contract and you have to make sure that it's done correctly. And so we're going to have Mr. Graham Catlett, who's an international attorney, speak about that. And then the following week will be managing payments and financing. Make sure you get paid and to take advantage of any finance options that are out there. Ms. Natalie Kennedy of FedEx will be today's presenter. And if we can have her slide. Oh, my apologies. Oh, so go ahead and go back to that one. I wanted to remind everyone that for those of you who wind up completing all 6 classes, and I'll refer to that in just a second, you will be able to get a certificate of completion for having attended all 6 of the sessions. And I think that's a good thing to have. And I also want to make sure that you know that we're having a giveaway, winning this book. This is actually a book. And for those people who have watched all 6 classes, they'll be able to have a drawing on that. Now, do be aware that in some cases, if you've didn't come in until class 3 and you do all the other classes, if you kind of a the honor system, if you go back and actually go through the first 2, is in this example, that are on the YouTube channel, you will qualify for having attended, all the classes, and you'll be able to get the certificate and also be eligible to get this book, which is a pretty cool book that kind of covers, okay, so we're doing t-shirts. What is the entire process to be able to make that happen? And so I hope that you guys are interested in acquiring that and be part of the drawing. Next. So Natalie Kennedy is with FedEx. She's a senior international account executive, and she was previously with J.B. Hunt, doing the same sort of work. Natalie's a really interesting person. She's a young person, but she's got a degree in international business with a focus on supply chain. And of course, that is immensely important right now. So she's very, very well qualified to speak on this topic. And she loves what she does and passionate about international and logistics. And you'll see her contact information there, but we'll have that information at the end as well. And Miss Natalie, if you will go ahead and start by sharing your screen and go to it.
Sure. Let's see here. Y'all let me know you can see that okay.
Yep, we just need to go to the single one.
Does everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Rudy, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Heidi and Jonathan as well. I really kind of got looped into the Arkansas District Export Council not that long ago, and I'm very thankful to have gotten the chance to get to know the District Export Council, Rudy, Jonathan, Heidi. It's been awesome. This is such an honor to be on here today, getting to speak on international shipping. Like Rudy said, I am very passionate about it. I'm very thankful that FedEx took me on. I've spent the past 5 years in Boston working with exporters and importers there, and have been lucky enough to get back to Arkansas. This is my home state. So now I'm fortunate enough to work with our shippers here on the export and import side. So we'll go ahead and jump on into this. So there's a lot that goes into international logistics. The things that we're going to be talking about today are going to be, learning about logistics as a whole, how to export really from Arkansas. We're going to be talking about the modes of transportation, resources that are available, how to do those documents whenever you're creating a commercial invoice, and really talking about risk involved and really everything involved from A to B. So here's our agenda. We're going to go over comprehensive plan components, different logistics providers, the cost of choices that you make as a company, Incoterms, which is huge, and international documentation. So really, whenever you're getting started with your international shipping, it's important to really have a good understanding of where you're starting, how you get ready, the relationships that you're developing, whether that be with the company that you're working with or internal people that you've hired to take on your supply chain. Get to know them, develop a relationship. You want to trust the people that you're giving your business to, and you want to make sure that there's loyalty there. We're going to talk about the goods, information, and money that move, not just the physical part of it, moving the product from A to B, but information that's required in the money, how it gets paid, what Incoterms you're selecting, managing those payments and financing, trade regulations and legal. There's so much that goes into this. So the movement of information, money, and goods, it's important to really understand from A to B, because everything that goes into exporting is not just putting your product on an airplane or a ship and sending it off. There's going to be information that's involved that's needed to export product into another country for the clearance, and then the financial aspect of it. You want to know who's paying the duties and taxes on the product. How are you paying for it up front? And a lot of that does come down to what company you work with whenever you're, trusting and building that loyal relationship, who's handling the product. So designing your program, you want to plan, source, make, sell, fulfill, ship, and you want to service it. Whether this is inbound supply chain, how you fulfill it. Are you fulfilling it here and then sending it out? Are you bringing product into the United States? sourcing it here or sourcing it abroad, whether you're exporting it. Designing your program really comes down to having those internal discussions with your company and designing your supply chain from A to B. So options for considering your logistics program. These are great questions to really ask. Do you want to manage it in-house? Have you hired people to manage this in-house? Are you using a third party? Are you using freight forwarders, integrators? Are you doing a combination of all of it? Really, these are questions to be answering internally as a company with your supply chain people. Customer service, what mode are you doing? Are you rail? Are you boat? Are you air, truck? However you do this, you want to talk about your mode choices. Global coverage, do you have insurance on your product? Do you have visibility to the product, and what's the cost? And these are great questions to really sit down and think about prior to shipping. These are the modes of transportation. I believe I just said that prior to speaking on this slide. Truck, rail, ocean, and air. These are the main modes. You can also do, multiple if that's how you think will be cost effective for you. I do specialize in air for FedEx. I do specialize in product coming in by air and product leaving by air. Like Rudy said before, I have worked with J.B. Hunt in the past. My husband also works for J.B. Hunt, so I am very familiar with truck and rail as well. Something to note about FedEx, if ocean is an option for you as a company, a lot of people think of FedEx as just, take a small package, put on an airplane or put on a truck and it goes. And that's not necessarily true. FedEx does have a whole separate division. We call it our FedEx Trade Networks. They specialize in ocean freight, and they can quote you on port to port, door to door, whether you're doing a partial container or a full container. So there are options there. And I just really want to elaborate on that from a FedEx perspective, because a lot of people don't know that FedEx does also ocean freight. So obtaining a rate quote. This comes down to really who you're trusting, who you're building that relationship with, what providers are you working with? Are you using a forwarder? Are you using a company like FedEx or one of our competitors? UPS, DHL are the most common ones. So obtaining a rate quote, specifically relating to FedEx, if you're looking to do an ocean quote, we have people that, I believe our lady that covers Arkansas, she's actually physically in Florida, but she's great. She'll just ask several questions. What are you shipping? What's the size of it? Is it a full container? What's the weight of the product? What's the timeline? And we can get you a quote within about a 5 to 10 minute timeline. It's pretty quick. Okay. And same thing for our air freight. We have different services. When you're exporting, whether it be small parcel or freight, we consider our freight anything over 250 pounds. We have a service that's called our MyQuote. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just struggling along up here. So like I said, Venus will head out in the morning now.
Okay. So when we're exporting, we can do anything under 250 to over 250 pounds up to, I believe, 999 pounds.
Ms. Heidi, can you? Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was hearing some background noise. I didn't know if it was a question. But our quotes do last 7 days. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to obtain a quote through our MyQuote service on export freight. The things that they look for when we're getting a quote is, what is the size of the shipment? We look for dimensions. We look for weight. Is it stackable? Is it non-stackable? Let's see here. What is the value of the product? What exactly is the product? Is it considered hazardous or non-hazardous? And what is the timeline that you need it delivered in? Our services for our rate quotes are considered either international priority or international economy. Our priority service is a 1 to 3 day transit from start to finish. And then our economy service is a 1 to 5 day transit from start to finish. So factoring the cost of choices, this is really important, and you really want to sit down as a company and think about these things. What is the product value? What terms are you using? And what's the movement? I am very biased to FedEx, of course, but I would say depending on what you're shipping and what your product is, I think it's important to sit down and maybe think about what are the options. You know, is it time sensitive? Is it, you know, how heavy is it? Are you using a full container? Is it one pallet? Is it less than a pallet? These are things that are going to really, you know, factor in the cost of what it takes to export something. What is the value of the product? Through FedEx, we do have a platform that lets you go online. You can type in the value of the product, what it is, and it will give you, it's not an exact landed cost for what duties and tax will look like, but it gives you a rough idea for what the duty and tax cost would be in that specific destination country. Other things are who's paying for the duties and taxes. Are you as a shipper paying for them, or are you leaving that open for the receiver to pay for? Typically what we see with our direct business to consumers is those shippers here will take on the duty and tax. Most of the time, if I see a company shipping B2B, business to business abroad, they leave that open for the business to take on the duty and tax. But again, that's completely up to you in your company, how you want to make those decisions. Excuse me. But it is important whenever if you have a specific budget that you're thinking about, and the size of your shipment, the timeline, and the duty and tax, all of that falls into what we call our landed cost to ship. Export documentation. This is really, really important to understand prior to shipping. There's a number of things that go into export documents, and it really does come down to product specific and country specific. At the end, I'll have my contact information. You know, if there is a specific country that you are curious about, please feel free to reach out to me and I can let you know specifically what is needed to export to that country and to get it through clearance. What is the product? And, you know, a lot of times when we have products that are considered animal or wildlife or food products, really anything that would require additional documentation, please reach out to me and I can help you understand what additionally would be needed. By default, no matter where you ship, you are always going to need a commercial invoice, and you are always going to need an international airway bill. So what goes on this documentation? The airway bill is what really, through FedEx, you can automatically generate this online. It gives you the tracking number. It will ask you questions. Who's paying for the duties and tax? You have the option to, as a shipper here, you also have the option to select to have the receiver pay. On that airway bill, it will notify customs immediately who's paying for the duty and tax. And at that point, they can reach out to the receiver if you are choosing them to, or they'll reach back out to you to pay the duty and tax, whoever, depending on who you've selected for it. The international airway bill is important because that's your tracking number. And it also just allows customs to know who's paying for those duties and taxes up front. The commercial invoice, I always recommend having it. If you're doing it by paper, I recommend 3 copies at all times. If you are processing electronically, that's great. You don't need a paper copy at that point. It is important to fill out the commercial invoice with as much detail as possible to the best of your ability. A commercial invoice is where customs really takes a deep dive into what is this product, why are they shipping it to our country, what's the use of this, and this is what really clears it. As detailed as you can make it is really the best way to go. If anyone does not have a commercial invoice, a blank one, please reach out to me. I have a blank one I can send you, and then you can fill out your information that's needed. The electronic export information, the EEI, depending on where you're shipping, it may or may not be needed. Also, depending on the value, it may not be needed. The electronic export information by default is anything valued over $2,500 or more is required to be filed as an EEI into our automated export system. This is controlled by our government this way that they can monitor the value of product that's leaving the country. Now, if you are exporting to Venezuela, China, or Russia, no matter the value, you will always be required to file an EEI into the automated export system. If you are using FedEx as a provider, whenever you're creating that airway bill and creating your shipment, it gives you by default an option to have FedEx file on your behalf. If you have never filed an EEI before or are not fully sure how to file, I do recommend selecting that service and having FedEx file the EEI on your behalf. I believe there is a $10 charge for it, but it's worth it to save the headaches and go ahead and do it. Certificate of origin, the USMCA, it was formerly the NAFTA agreement. This is required shipping to Canada. The bill of lading will be needed if you are shipping anything considered LTL going to Canada. A packing list will also be needed. A letter of credit may or may not, depending on where you are shipping. And again, the information for the commercial invoice, who is the importer of record, the full commodity description is so important, the harmonized code, Incoterms, and who's paying for those duties and taxes. Something that I really want to hit on with the harmonized tariff code as well is we do have a platform. If you don't know, we call it an HTS code. If you don't know what harmonized tariff code to use, let me know. I can provide a resource to you that lets you fill out information and it will automatically produce an HTS code for you. Commodity classification. Again, I kind of just spoke about this, but whenever you're coming up with the HTS code, this will always be needed no matter where you're shipping. And I know Rudy hit on this earlier. The EU is cracking down on their security for their product coming in. So right now, if you are shipping to the EU, that is changing everything you ship, no matter how many items you're shipping, everything does require an HTS code now. So, again, if you don't know what HTS code to use on your product, please let me know and I can help you out. This will have an impact on your duty and tax rates. Again, whatever HTS code you do choose, it is considered customs calculating what they're going to charge you on those duties and taxes. Okay, freight, insurance, and declared value. A lot of first-time exporters get these two kind of mixed up and confused. The first thing I really want to hit on is declared value is not insurance. They are two complete separate things. Declared value, first and foremost, really protects the shipping company from being fully liable for the product is really what it comes down to. By default, I know FedEx and majority of our competitors do default to $100 declared value. You can select higher declared value. I recommend always putting the actual value of what that product is listed as a declared value. That is not your insurance. If you are shipping anything considered high value, whether that be art or life science product, anything that is really cost you as a company a lot of money, you want to make sure you have insurance no matter what on that product. The declared value really just protects the carriers and shipping companies for losses that are caused beyond their control. So really insurance is so needed outside of a declared value just to give you that extra bit of protection on shipping, if something were to go wrong that was caused outside of a carrier's control. Terms of sale, these are our Incoterms. A big thing about this, it goes into who's paying the duties and taxes. Our most common ones that we see are DDP and DDU. DDP is delivery duty paid. DDU is delivery duty unpaid. Delivery paid means that you as a shipper are taking on those duties and taxes. DDU, by default, customs will automatically reach out to the recipient or the consignee for those duty and tax payments. There are several different Incoterms. This link here will give you, This link here will give you all the Incoterms where you can take a deep dive into it outside this presentation and decide, what Incoterms you are planning to use for the terms of sale. Okay, labeling and packaging. So you want to think about the packaging when you're shipping. Let's say, for example, if you're shipping glass, if you have just as an example, if you're shipping a wine glass to Italy, you don't want to just throw that in a box and send it off. You definitely want to make sure that you have the right components to keep that wine glass safe. Same thing with freight. If you're shipping a large pallet of, breakable items or machinery. You want to make sure that you are packaging it safely for it to be either, handed off to a boat, or whether it's going on an airplane. FedEx has what we call a packaging lab. And that's where we send people from Memphis to your offices specifically. They take a look at the product, they see how you're packaging it currently, and they can make recommendations on, if they think you're doing something wrong that could cause the product to be damaged at the end of it. And that's completely free. We do not charge our customers for a packaging lab consultation. So if anyone has questions about labeling and packaging, or they may be concerned, our packages may end up damaged at the end of this, we want to know for sure, please reach out to me and I can set you up with a packaging lab consultant. And then labeling, depending on how you're shipping your product, we're trending into a supply chain where everything is done electronically now. So when you're processing online, we have what's called our electronic trade document. What this is, it prints out one sticker label, and everything, your commercial invoice or airway bill or other documentations are already uploaded into a barcode that goes on that sticker. At that point, you just put the sticker on the box. As soon as the driver scans that package, it starts clearing before it's landed in a destination country. If you are not using electronic trade, you will typically have to fill out a commercial invoice. And this is where I recommended printing off 3 different copies, also printing off the airway bill and sticking this all into a sticker pouch that also attaches to the box. If you're not doing electronic trade, I highly recommend switching to it. Through FedEx, it is free. I don't know about other providers, but we do offer free electronic trade. The reason why I recommend switching to that instead of physically labeling packages is because those things can come off in the middle of transportation at any given point. You're talking about millions upon millions of packages moving in a 24-hour span. So you really want to make sure that your product, is not arriving to a destination country with a commercial invoice and an airway bill falling off. At that point, they wouldn't know where it goes to or who it delivers to. So if you're not using electronic trade now, I do recommend 100% getting set up on it, just because it helps limit any risk associated with exporting. These are some tools and resources outside this presentation that I would highly recommend taking a look at. Export.gov, it's free, and the US Census Harmonized Code lookup. This is a good one too. I have recommended my customers use this outside of going to a FedEx website to auto-populate. It may be good to, compare the two, see if it auto-populates the same one for you, or if it gives you 2 separate ones. Basic Guide to Exporting. If you've never exported before, this would be a great thing to read up on. Dictionary of International Trade, and the Incoterms. So next steps, prior to getting ready for your sale and your shipping, you want to learn about the country import rules. Like I said earlier, if you're shipping to a country, you may not know what be needed on a specific product that you have, and you think you might need more than a commercial invoice or an airway bill. Please let me know. I have a full resource of all the different countries that we as FedEx service, which is 220 different countries and territories. So I can let you know specifically what would be needed on a certain product, what their rules are, what their regulations are. You want to identify those documents and harmonized codes that are needed prior to shipping. And you want to make sure that HTS code does go on a commercial invoice. As well, I believe that they are switching now to having the HTS codes also on the airway bills for the EU. Don't hold me to that 100%. This rolls out March 1st, so we are learning more and more about it every single day. If there are questions, please reach out to me. Identify your packaging needs and select the best transportation mode. Frequently asked questions: where can I locate the correct tariff code for my commodity or product? That's the HTS code that we've talked about. You can go to hts.gov. You can also use FedEx as a resource. It's good to also probably go to both and compare the two. Why should I use a harmonized code? The harmonized code allows customs to know what the product is and how much to properly charge you based for the duty and tax. Does the information about the commodity as written on the airway bill need to be repeated on a commercial invoice? Yes. And also, just to elaborate a little bit more on this, you want to make sure that they match each other. So if you're putting a specific value about a product on an airway bill and it doesn't match the value on a commercial invoice, that's going to be a red flag to customs. You always want to make sure everything lines up correctly, and that it doesn't, you don't want to give them a reason to pull it to the side and say, well, why would these be different? And then cause what we call customs delays. Nobody wants that when they're trying to ship something and get it to their recipient. Are electronic documents acceptable? Yes, absolutely. Like I said, we're pushing a supply chain worldwide now to be all done electronically and not through paper. Electronic documents just really kind of eliminate any kind of risk involved with documents going missing. Like I said, prior to this, you do not want your package to, for example, end up in Germany and it gets to customs and there's no information on it. There's no commercial invoice. There's no tracking. There's nothing available for them to see what is this package doing here. So you really, using electronic documents, I cannot express enough about how important it is, if you're not using it now, to go ahead and get set up with electronic. When should I consider a multiple piece shipment versus a palletized shipment? How many pieces are you shipping at one time? Are you shipping enough to a one specific destination, country where it could be palletized? If you're shipping 1 to 2 packages a week, maybe a pallet's not necessary. If you're shipping 10 to 15 items that can go on a pallet, that might, be beneficial to, think about doing a pallet versus individual parcel from a cost perspective. There's so many solutions. The list goes on, and one thing that I really wanted to hit on with this is, just to reiterate myself, like I said, a lot of people think about FedEx as shipping one single small box to their cousin or their mom and dad or a friend somewhere, and they drop it off at a FedEx station, and then that station, ships it and delivers it, no problem. There are so many different things that FedEx does. We do the packaging lab, we process the electronic, we set you up with electronic. We have so many automation solutions. If you're a brand new company and you don't have an inventory list, I just found out this week that we have now opened up the option for you to create your own inventory list through our FedEx software systems. We have people that we work with directly on the international side that will connect with you one-on-one, rather than you calling rather than you calling customer service or trying to, talk to one of these little pop-up boxes on .com. We have people that will connect with you directly, that will help you with automation. We have visibility solutions. If you are the one that is creating the shipment and you're paying for it and you're sending something abroad, you really want to make sure that you are set up on advanced tracking, which gives you a full detail from start to finish: who's touched the product, where's it currently at, what's the status of it. You want to make sure you have all of that ready to go. If you need help with understanding what specifically to put on your commercial invoice, we have the solutions for you. Really anything, the packaging lab, if you want to go ground to Canada, if you're worried about the cost of shipping something, we have quotes. We've got, ocean freight people, and really the list goes on. This company is so big, and I find out things new every single week about solutions that are available to our customers. So if there are any questions about, hey, can you do this, or can you help me with this, please let me know. Export documentation. So one thing that we really need to discuss is the bad descriptions versus the good descriptions. One thing that I always recommend to our FedEx customers for a commercial invoice is to answer these main questions. What is the product? What's the product made up of? Why are you shipping it here? What is the intended use? Is it for resale? And what is the value? Are you returning it? Customs anywhere in the world really just wants to know basically, what is this product? What's the use, and why are you shipping it here? If you send something to, I'll use Germany as another example. If you ship something to Germany, you put a value of $1 and you just put sample on it, they're going to pull it aside and say, what is this sample? What's the use of this? Is it really $1? So you just really want to make sure that when you're filling out a commercial invoice, if somebody was shipping something to you and you didn't know what it was, it's kind of like that. You want to know what is this product and what's the intended use, and just really answer questions and make it as detailed as possible. Obtaining a rate quote, depending on what you're shipping. If you're looking for an air freight quote and it's parcel, or it's anything over 250 pounds, let me know. We have services, and also this is for import too. So any kind of quotes needed to bring something into the country or, export it out of the country. There are so many, different availabilities for this. Our quotes last 1 to 7 business days before needing a new one. If you are looking to really get exporting jump started and you're going to have multiple pieces a week going, maybe the best thing for you would be to sit down and look at what we call evergreen pricing. And that's just a discount that is on your FedEx account number, no matter what, doesn't disappear. If you're looking to do LTL to Canada, we can quote you on that. Anything ocean freight, you can get a quote there. If you are looking, for something maybe outside of those options, and you are thinking about a full truckload or a rail kind of quote, I do know people at other companies that I could happily set you up with. Like I said, my husband works for JB Hunt, so and I worked for them too. So I am very familiar with how their options to quote and things like that too. When you are obtaining a rate quote, things that you want to have readily available is, what are the dimensions of the product? What's the size of it? How many pieces are you shipping? What's the value? Stackable, non-stackable? Is it hazardous? Who's paying for the duties and taxes? And the other thing is, always have the postal codes ready. So have the postal code ready from where you're shipping it from, and have the exact postal code ready for where you're delivering it to. Even if you send it to, Paris, France, you need to make sure you always have the correct postal code ready. And then, answer questions for yourself. What's the time sensitivity of it? Do you need it in 5 days, or do you need it in 3 days? Because FedEx specifically can quote you on 2 different options there. If you, don't need it within 3 days, maybe it's best for you to use an economy service and try to save some money there.
Ms. Natalie, if I can break in just for a second, I guess at the end of the day, if you look at my background, in a lot of ways, one could say that I'm a risk mitigation guy, just with a whole bunch of different topics. And one of the things that you need to be really careful about is the destination. Sometimes what will happen is, they'll call you, they'll say, we want you to ship to X point, and then right before it actually ships, they'll tell you, we've changed our mind. We want you to ship it to this completely different place. Be very careful. Especially depending if you have a product that could be dual use, you have to be very, very careful with that. Obviously, you need to know who this is really going to. I guess if you're sending, flower pots, who cares, right? But if you're sending anything that has any potential whatsoever of being dual use, you have to be very, very sure where it's going to wind up at. And a lot of times it'll be a scam if it winds up that they tell you to send it to a completely different place right before it actually ships.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, you want to make sure you have, and something else I want to really elaborate on too is, make sure you know who you're shipping it to. So I should have said this earlier about a commercial invoice. You want to make sure you have that person's name, their phone number, their email address. One thing about FedEx is when we're delivering to a consignee and they're taking on the duty and tax, they're going to reach out to those people specifically to pay for it. And it's so important too. Just for your own safety here, where the product's going, who it's delivering to, just to kind of eliminate any risk involved. But yeah, absolutely. The postal codes, like I said, if I use France as an example because it's a major city, that has multiple different postal codes. So if you say I'm shipping this to this person in Paris, France, and you don't know specifically what postal code you're delivering to, it could get there and it could deliver, and then you've got a call from your customer there saying, hey, I didn't get this. And then it's kind of like, well, that would be the risk of that. So you want to make sure you know who you're shipping it to, where exactly they're located, and their correct postal code. If there ever is an issue where, you've received the exact destination, and that destination changes in the middle of a shipment life cycle. Life cycle is after the shipment's been picked up and it's on its way to the destination. If there is ever a situation where that delivery address may change, that person has moved or they're not there, we do have options. I'll be fully transparent. If you call me or you call someone in FedEx and you say, I need to change the address on this, we do always let our operations teams know the address has changed. It is still a risk though, and you're not guaranteed that it will deliver to that new destination, that new address, because these packages move so fast. So it's really hard once a package has left and it started its life cycle and it's going to a destination. It's very hard to go pull that package, change the destination, and re-deliver it, just because of how quickly they move. So it's just very important just to kind of go off that. Make sure you know who it's delivering to, the correct zip code, postal code, wherever it's going to. So that can't elaborate on that more. And then these are just several resources that are provided by FedEx. Our global trade manager is really a great thing to have if you're not set up on it. That allows you to look up the HTS codes. It gives you the duty and tax estimator. It lists all the countries and territories that we service. And it does let you also know upfront what documentation is going to be required. Global Trade Manager is also the tool that allows you to create your own inventory list and packing list if you do not have that currently. EI filing, like I said, we can absolutely process that for you too. While you're creating your airway bill, if it's over $2,500 and more going to a destination, you will be required to file. I believe that the FedEx fee is $10. That may have changed, but I'm like 99.9% sure it's still a $10 fee. Our export agent filing tool, that's what's used for the EEI. Our global regulatory services, please use RCG at FedEx.com. It's a great resource. If you have any questions on, is my product okay to ship to this country? What is needed to ship to this country? Is this hazardous material okay? I'm shipping a food or wildlife or something that's not a flower pot. Is this okay? What's needed to ship it? Our regulatory group, they are excellent. They're 5-star. They get back to you very quickly. I've never had a problem with them since I've started working, and they've been able to answer so many questions that I would never know. And then international customer service, always a great resource to have. It's, you can call in, they can help you out with billing, they can help you out with any kind of just standard questions you may have. If you're looking for an update on something, international customer service is a great resource to use. And then please use me too. I personally am a type of person, I like working with someone directly. So I try to be that for our customers, and my job now is to support our Arkansas exporters. So anything I can be doing to help you out, please keep my contact information, my phone number. I try to be very easy to work with. So if you're a texter, feel free to text me. If you want to call me, call me. And if you want to email me, by all means, email me. I'm just happy to meet with, anyone that has any questions or needs help at all, prior to exporting with anything. So, and if I don't know something, I'll put you in the hands of somebody that can help you. FedEx is a major company. It's massive, and there's so many different services we offer. So please use me as a resource, and let us know. And believe that that's the end of it. So I'm happy to take questions if anybody has questions. Anything.
Yeah. So, Ms. Natalie, thank you very much. That was great. Obviously, this is a lot of information, and obviously, it's not exhaustive. There's just so much to know. But the old saying about you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes what happens is, and hopefully that's the intent, is that just to make you aware that these issues exist out there and that you need to be paying attention. I had one client that got an order for 300 for computers, PC computers, $350,000 worth, and you know, the address was X, and right before it was going to be delivered, it got changed to Y, and he did not really question it, and as a consequence, the people picked it up, took $350,000 worth of IT equipment, and that was the last of it, and he didn't get paid. So, you know, once again, there's just things that you have to be very, very careful about. Like Natalie was saying, you need to really know who you're doing business with and what the end destination point is. And so let me see here. First of all, I do want to make you aware that we have Tim Haggerty on as one of the attendees today. Tim is with he's a transportation industry analyst at the Federal Maritime Commission. So that's really great, and we really appreciate your attending. That's fantastic expertise.
Thanks, Rudy. Yeah, I've attended all 4 sessions so far, and mainly it's a learning for me just to understand what the district export councils are offering, not just in Arkansas, but I assume what's happening in Arkansas is happening with the DECs everywhere.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and I think you know, Tim, that the district export councils, there's 60 of them, at least one in every state. The bigger states like California have a couple of them, but almost everywhere else there's at least one of them. And there's also a national body called the National Association of District Export Councils, of which all 60 of the DECs belong to. Anyway, so we're here to help, and I think you probably know that each one of the members that are in the council were appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. Why don't you tell us, Tim, a little bit about what you do?
Right. So thanks, Rudy. I'm within the Federal Maritime Commission. I work within their Office of Consumer Affairs and Dispute Resolution Services, and so we receive concerns, issues, complaints from all sectors of the ocean shipping in particular. But we also regulate passenger cruise vessels, cruise lines, but for our purposes here, mainly commercial freight moving containerized with ocean vessels. And we just try and facilitate, bridge the gap between exporters, importers, freight forwarders, ocean transport intermediaries, the vessel operators, and marine terminal operators. Any type of disputes or questions they might have, trying to come to a solution. And this is keeping out of the courts, no fees charged, just trying to bring parties together, get the facts on the table, and move things forward. But beyond that, we have a kind of a separate project initiative to increase the U.S. exports. And in particular, during the pandemic, we saw that it was quite a challenge for a number of major export sectors to obtain ocean containers where they needed them, obtain vessel space. It seemed like the ocean carriers' perception was that they were just focused entirely on imports. So we're trying to just address that trend and let all the export community out there know that we are here to assist, and we're actually a good bridge between the exporters and the ocean carriers to help fill many gaps and bring parties together.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that. Now, I have a Tommy says rules concerning shipments into a free trade zone. Tommy, if you would unmute and ask your question, would really appreciate that. Is Tommy on? Well, I don't. Yeah, Tommy. Yeah, there you are. Can you ask your question, please? Not hearing you. In any case, obviously, if you have a question, feel free to contact me, and I will direct whatever questions you might have to the appropriate party. We don't have individually, we don't have all the answers to everything, but the cool thing about the decks is that especially with 60 decks, we have access to experts in every area of international business, whether it be importing or exporting. So feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to answer the question if I can, and if not, put you in contact with the right person. Let me see. I don't see any other questions. Am I missing something, Miss Heidi?
Just a minute. Let me check here.
I'm looking through the entire chat conversations, and that's the only question that I see.
I think maybe Tommy meant, what are the rules concerning shipments into a free trade zone, or where
I'm sure that is probably
might you find those rules? I mean, that would.
Well, cool. Tommy, if you will contact me, like I said, I'll try to get that information to you, and hook you up with the very best person that can answer that question, because obviously that's something really, really specific, right? And we want to make sure that we hook you up with an expert. Now, you guys, for those of you who attended the previous webinars, I think that you might be aware that there was a little bit of a technical problem about the first 15 or 16 minutes had not been recorded, because for whatever reason the recording button just kind of jumped off. But we re-recorded that section, merged the two pieces, and that's available now. So if you looked at the recording that had the first 18 minutes missing, feel free to go back and look at the entire recording. Let me see there. Oh yeah. Also want to make sure that you guys do the survey. There's a survey link that Ms. Heidi put up for us. Obviously we want to make sure that we provide you exactly the sort of information and feedback that you're looking for. And the only way we can do that is to make sure that you guys do the survey, tell us what you think, areas of improvement, areas of opportunity, and kind of go from there. And Ms. Heidi, yeah, great. Thank you so much. You're doing exactly what I was hoping for. The next class is going to be on March the 1st, which is exactly a week from now, 2:00 Central, just like today. And we're going to be covering trade regulations and legal issues with Graham Catlett, who is a DEC member, has been a DEC member for a really long time, an international attorney. I think he's been the chair of the District Export Council at least a couple of times in the last 20 odd years that he's been a member of the DEC. Fantastic resource for us. And, once again, he's going to cover certain contract issues that you need to take a look at, and other regulations that you have to pay attention to, because it ain't horseshoes, man. Close doesn't count. And so it's just really important that you get this stuff right. And so I hope that you will make the effort to attend next week's class as well. And then on March the 8th, obviously, we have the finance portion of that series of classes. Unless there are any other questions, and I don't see any at this point. Yeah, thank you much. Here is our contact information. Feel free to contact whoever. Can you go ahead and go back to that same slide, Miss Heidi, the very last one? I don't think we stayed on it quite long enough. Anyway, if you feel free to contact whoever you think is the appropriate person. If it's Natalie that you want to contact, or myself, or Jonathan, who's the chair of the District Export Council, or Ms. Heidi, who's been the wizard behind the curtain, so to speak, just feel free to contact them, and we will get to whatever questions you have and get you with the right person to answer questions. Jonathan, you've got anything else that you want to add?
Just want to say thank you all for taking time out of your schedule to be with us again this week. We couldn't do this without all of your support. Also want to thank Natalie for the informative presentation. Rudy, as always, you've done an amazing job. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do this without Miss Heidi, of course, because I know I'm not technologically savvy enough to pull off everything that she's doing. So Miss Heidi, thank you very much.
Yeah, she's the wizard behind the curtain.
That's right. And finally, of course, to our sponsors, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission and Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions for their support on us hosting these webinars. So that is all I have. Thanks again, Rudy.
Thank you. And we will see you hopefully next week. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you all.